And I am right now, hey guys, Nick from Milburn, and I am live from St. James Gate in my hometown of Maplewood, New Jersey, on Maplewood Avenue in Maplewood Village. I'm going to walk around. I'm going to pretend I'm a stack monster in a little while and walk around and start showing you guys what's going on here. A very good crowd at the bar for this already. There's excitement. And, I'm joined by my buddy that I haven't talked to in a while, but I used to talk to him on a daily, if not on a weekly, if not daily basis, Chris Russo. Chris, how you doing, my friend?
I'm doing all right, thanks, Nick. I mean, the team can only tell you so much positively, but we're here, and I think you talk about the large crowd. They're 6-13, but I mean they're still here. You look at Georgetown a few years ago; they still got to the NCAA tournament after the year they had. And you never know what can happen.
No, that's right. And I was thinking about that. And just so you guys know, Chris is a WSOU legend. Just along with our own Chris Jones, who is actually, doing the game today out in Nebraska. But you play the game. You never know what's going to happen. And, we're loyal to this program. When things go against you, you find out, who's your friends and who's not, and who's loyal and who's not. And that's when they need us. When you're 15-1, anyone can hop on the bandwagon. But when in the opposite, that's when the team needs our support. And, I've been around for 50 years and I'm not going anywhere. Paul, what are your thoughts? And let me introduce our analyst extraordinaire, my buddy, the great Paul. Paul, how are you, my friend?
I'm doing great today. Nick, great to see you. Great to see the real Chris Russo of radio.
Easy there.
So I'm going to jump right into the scouting report.
Sure.
And then we could talk about the rest of the game. Obviously, it's not going to get any easier for the Hall today. Pirates heading to Omaha for a Saturday afternoon matchup against the Creighton Blue Jays. Now, that's going to be an electric environment. The CHI Health Center is sold out. It's a pink out doubleheader. After the men's game, the Creighton's women team is undefeated in the Big East. They're going to host UConn. This is their annual pink out for cancer awareness. And so the place should be crazy. Creighton's 13-6, 6-2 in conference, which is good for a third place tie with UConn. They've played a tough out-of-conference schedule. Marquee win 76-63, defeated number 12 Kansas. The Blue Jays have lost to A&M, Texas A&M, and Alabama, and they've lost to Nebraska, which was kind of a strange loss, and San Diego State. In the league, they went to Marquette and got beat, and they got blown out by Georgetown, which is amazing. But they've got wins over St. John's, Villanova, and they went up to Storrs and got a win against UConn. Last we checked, they are an 8 seed in ESPN's bracketology. And 2 weeks ago, they were on one of the last team in, first teams out. So they've been playing well, and they've actually improved their situation vis-a-vis the national polls. Now, they're big guns. We all know Ryan Kalkbrenner. We remember him for the past couple of years at Creighton. He's a senior center, averaging 17 points and 8 rebounds a game and 3 blocks. And point guard Stephen Ashworth, he's also averaging 17 points a game, and he gets 7 assists. Now, he turns the ball a little bit too much for my taste. He turns the ball over 4 times a game. But we all know Ashworth can play. We all know Kalkbrenner can play. They've been getting contributions from Jemiah Neal, Isaac Trout, and Jackson McAndrew. And what's scary about this Creighton team, and probably fortunate for the Hall today, is they had a third guy named Pop Isaacs who was averaging 16 points a game. He just had season-ending knee surgery. So Neal and Trout have been trying to fill the gap over there. Now, how does Creighton play? They throw up a lot of threes. They throw up 28 threes a game, and they'll make 10 of them a game. They're not great at anything offensively, but they're good at a lot of things. The inside-outside play of ball going into Kalkbrenner and back out for a 3 is very, very effective. They are very, very good at not fouling. I think that they're number 1 in the country in how many foul shots the other teams don't take versus the number of baskets they make. They defensively, they play man-to-man, but Kalkbrenner likes to slide off his man and clog up the lane, and that's how he gets all those block shots. Seton Hall doesn't really have a lot of dish off options. If Isaiah is going to drive the lane, and Kalkbrenner is going to come over to try to block the shot. I'm not sure who exactly he's going to dish to. So that's going to be interesting as the game wears on. Creighton always strikes me as pretty. Their uniforms are pretty. They'll be pretty in pink tonight. They play pretty basketball and very ACC-ish, if you will. And Seton Hall in the past has been able to get them into Big East, blood on the floor, guys diving on loose balls type games. I think that's going to be very key for Seton Hall today if they're going to have a chance at all. Creighton's playing well, and they, their last 3 wins are 2 20-point wins against DePaul and Providence, and the win up at UConn. So I'm looking again to see what our answer is going to be to Kalkbrenner, and if we can get Creighton into a physical beat up game that doesn't play to their strengths. The bookies have it 75-60 Creighton. We'll see about that. So that's what I've got to say, but that's it. Now we've just lost.
Before I go to Chris, let me just ask you real quick. And first of all, I mean, you said pretty. That would probably be the last word that I would describe Doug McDermott as, pretty. But that's okay.
No, not a handsome man.
Let me just ask you this. How would you defend their big guy inside?
So I keep saying, and I've said it all year, that we've got 15 fouls. The three-headed monster in God's Will and Gus and I can never say a record for his name. I would have to put guys on him. I'd have to push him around. I'd have to keep him away from the basket. He can step out and take the 3, but he really doesn't like to. He doesn't shoot a lot of them. At least he hasn't this season.
Yeah, Paul, I can't hear you.
Oh, okay. Can you hear me, Chris?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay. So I think that you just got to be as physical as you can and use up 15
Paul?
fouls.
Okay.
Yeah. So you have to use up to 15 fouls. And that, to me, is to be the best way to deal with it. I can't imagine, because he is very, very good and he's very effective inside.
Nick, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Paul just wrapped up.
Thank you. So, Chris, what are your thoughts on what Paul said and about today's game?
Well, look, it's going to have to be controlled through Kalkbrenner. He is the name for Creighton. I can tell you from personal experience that I think from an atmosphere standpoint, I have done a game at CHI Health Center. It's an incredible experience. It's going to be very different because it was about 6 degrees and snowing. I think when James Justice and I touched down at Omaha Airport. But it is going to be intense. It was another Saturday afternoon. It is, Omaha is not exactly in the same category as New York or Newark, and so it's Saturdays in the winter. There's not a ton to do, so it's going to be an intense atmosphere. It's very, I guess, for lack of a better word, collegial. It's very interesting. I do actually remember that Warren Buffett was actually known to be there quite a few times. I'm not sure if he's been since, but it's a very interesting atmosphere over there. Look, for the game itself, it's going to have to be controlling Kalkbrenner. It's going to have to be double teaming, maybe triple teaming him. And if you can get him in foul trouble, that's going to be the most important thing. Because again, Paul said it. He is I think he's their deepest threat in terms of scoring, but he's also their facilitator. He's the guy in the middle who controls everything on the outside. They're going to have a tougher time because if you can control him, then they become really a one-dimensional team offensively from three-point range. So containing him is going to be huge. Look, the Pirates, at least until the last few games, had been a pretty strong team defensively this year. And so that's not as much a concern as it is offensively. I would say for Coleman driving the lane, look, I can tell you, I haven't followed the team extensively this year, but I was writing for Steampunk Sports on the opener against St. Peter's. Chauncey Jenkins was, I think, a welcome surprise to me and probably should be a welcome surprise to Pirates fans. I know Isaiah Coleman is the guy and averaging nearly 16 a game. It feels like 16 a year. Averaging a 16 a game, and he's taken over. But I think Chauncey Jenkins, when the timing is right, is a very welcome second threat and can continue to drive the lane.
Chris, let me just follow up with two questions. One, I've never been to Creighton, but I've been to Butler, and I've also been to Kansas. How would you compare Creighton to Butler?
That's tough. It's funny. Butler's actually the one, with the exception of, I guess, UConn, because they weren't back in the conference by the time I graduated. With the exception of UConn, I guess Butler's the one place I never got to do a game in any capacity, men's,
Really?
women's, or otherwise. Yeah, it was surprising, it's especially surprising considering Seton Hall especially went on to win the NIT there, and God knows they love Hoosiers and all that. But yeah, I would say from what I can tell from watching Butler on television compared to what I experienced with Creighton, look, Butler has a much more old-time atmosphere. Butler obviously has it's a field house. That's what it is.
Right.
It does feel more like a college game, whereas Creighton, I think, it's a little more new wave. It's a little more, somewhat more NBA like atmosphere. It's a great crowd. What's interesting is the building itself is not just the arena. The arena is only a small part of the actual edifice. The vast majority of it actually is the convention center, which I don't know how much of a difference that really makes compared to something like Butler, but you could argue maybe, if you could argue maybe, it's a little bit more of a corporate crowd. Omaha is, I said it's not like New York, but Omaha is a big place for
Let
major
me ask you real quick, how close is it to campus?
I don't believe it's that close. I believe it's downtown. I don't remember.
Really?
I don't remember ever getting on campus in Creighton.
Really?
So,
do they have a lot of? I mean, Butler's on campus. Do they have a lot of students that attend the game, or is it mostly like you said, alumni and people who are? It's just like the thing to do in Omaha, Nebraska.
they got a good student section. It's a big school, especially when you consider, compared to Seton Hall, it's in the Northeast. You're in the Northeast corridor. There's a lot more schools in the area. There's a lot more schools in the Newark area alone, let alone the New York City area. Whereas, you go to Nebraska and it's pretty much, you go to Creighton, you go to Nebraska, you go to Nebraska, Omaha. Those are the three big ones. And that's all in Eastern Nebraska anyway. So I would say it's also a larger facility. I think it seats about 10,000 or so. But the difference is it's not like the Rock where you just sell out the lower bowl. Like this is their building, but it's not exactly. It's the middle ground of it's not a gym, but it's not exactly the Prudential Center where you might not sell out the upper bowl unless you get a really good game and you're leasing it through another organization. So it's really a unique atmosphere. But yeah, I don't remember it being that close to campus. I think it's more in the middle of the city.
And then my other question, just to follow up, you talked about their big guy. Would you front him and try to do some ball denial? Because I know and let me just say, I was at the game last year, the triple overtime game, and that was probably the best college basketball game I was at for Seton Hall when we lost, and that was just a tremendous game, and he really hurt us, and Regard Ashford, he hurt us too with the threes. And what a difference, without Kadari a year makes. But how would you scheme him? Do you think we're going to come out and we're going to try to front him with some weak side help, or if we're going to back off on him, we're going to zone him? What do you think?
Well, I think they're going to have to zone him just because, look, especially with the size of a lot of the guys from Seton Hall, Okorafor is the only true center. It's going to be tough to go one-on-one with him. Zone is probably a better attack. I think getting up front on the ball is going to be difficult considering they can lob it over the top and really get it into him with his size. So it's going to be a numbers game really. And can Creighton exploit what should be, I think, a zone defense for Seton Hall?
And it's interesting, and it's interesting because Seton Hall's offense has been essentially going small. Their best offensive team has been the small team. And that would be a very difficult matchup if they go out with the smaller guys. I got a question for you, Nick. I took a look. I saw that Dylan is still out. I thought Chauncey Jenkins was still out with injury. He went down in the last game. I haven't heard. That's Fox Sports, so I'm not sure how up to the minute it is. But if those two guys aren't playing, where do you go for baskets?
I mean, what I would do, and we had talked about this, Paul, previously, And, because the one thing we do have going is Shaw likes to play a lot of guys. And I think, press, do something, trap, try to score your points, because in a set, we're not that great. I mean, we're Coleman driving to the lane, and we're Chauncey driving to the lane, and then maybe kicking out to Dylan. I would try to, score points in transition. And, what do we have to lose? Why not go out there and do a trap or a press and move guys in and out? Look, we have nothing to lose. Everyone thinks we're not going to win this game. So, we have nothing to lose. So why not try things? Why not let Seton go in there and try to create some turnovers? What do you guys think about that?
Well, I agree. I mean, the slow down patterned offense has been less than effective over the course of the season. And that relies significantly on Dylan's leadership, even though he's not the best ball handler. And it relies on having both Jenkins and Coleman available. Now, you don't have Coleman. I'm sorry, you have Coleman. You don't have Jenkins. You don't have Dylan. So now you've got, Scott Felton feeding Isaiah Coleman. That's your whole offense. So you might as well run up and down the floor. You might as well get everybody out there. I would say throw up some threes. Seton Hall only shoots 11, 12 threes a game, and Creighton's going to throw up 28 of them. So the existing pattern hasn't worked, and I think that we've seen Coach Holloway getting frustrated with the same, going out there telling the same guys to do the same thing and not having it work. I would do something that we haven't seen before. Why not, Nick? To your point, what do you got to lose at this point in the season?
Chris, what do you think about that? You've been following this team and for a long time, and and we've all been blessed because Seton Hall's had a very nice run, but this year is a bit of a down year. So what is your philosophy? If you were Shaheen Holloway, what would be your philosophy heading into a place where the environment is very difficult and you have a veteran team? How would you try to handle it?
Well, I think, look, today's a day you go for broke. You look at the NCAA, it's different from playing in the pros, where you're not getting a high draft pick because you're not performing this season. You're not really, and look, it's a snowball effect with NIL right now. And so it's going to continue to get more difficult. But I would say, look, if you have no Adewusu and if you have possibly no Jenkins, defensively, I think that actually could help the Pirates. It's going to wear them out more. It's going to make them more tired, but it's going to force them to play their forwards a lot more, and that will help with Kalkbrenner. They'll have a little bit more size. But, yeah, offensively, it's going to have to be Coleman and just spreading it to everybody. Look, I don't think Scotty Middleton is exactly what everybody expected him to be coming from Ohio State, at least from an offensive standpoint. But you know what? They're going to have to just keep spreading it around, take threes, take it from the outside. I thought watching that St. Peter's game, if Toomey is in today, I thought he was actually a surprisingly capable scorer, could play from the outside, but he kind of wore down in the second half. And so I'd like to see what he can do with additional minutes. I'd like to see what any of these guys can do. Just go deep into your bench and see what guys are capable of. It's a good test day as well. And the truth is, I will also say, look, you mentioned Creighton getting blown up by Georgetown. But that idea, Seton Hall probably should have beaten Georgetown. They lost by 1. And so it's the transitive property. And it's funny to think. So anything is possible. It is a conference where theoretically anyone can beat anyone. So don't rule anything out.
Right. Historically and theoretically, anyone in the Big East on any given day could beat anyone else. But we're a little bit down this year, so I hope that plays out. And I think you made a great point. I mean, Tomei, I have seen flashes where I thought he was going to be an excellent player for this squad. And I've seen flashes where he just disappeared, where you can tell his attitude wasn't that great on the court. Sometimes his shot's going and sometimes it's not. I think he had trouble adjusting to the Big East style of play on the defensive end. And I think that's why his minutes were taken back a little bit. But yes, I agree. In this game, just let him play and let him shoot, because what do we have to lose? Paul, what do you think about that? I know you were encouraged by Toomey early, but lately, I mean, we haven't seen him.
Well, I think that this might be a game, given the number of guys who are out, where Coach Holloway is simply going to say, these are the guys I'm going to pick. I'm going to use an 8-man rotation because that's all I have. I'm going to put them out there. I'm going to finally just let them play. And if we win, we win. And if not, I know what the guys are that I can do the next time. Hey, I'm going to change the subject a little bit because Chris brought up, we're not in the pros, even though we kind of are in the pros these days with the way
I know where you're
NIL
going,
is.
Paul. I know where you're going. I was thinking the same thing.
And I guess my question, we heard last week, Rick Pitino, Don Pitino, essentially talking about how, that Kadari would be here if we could have sweetened the pot, and if we could have let him dip his beak a little bit, and not let him kick upstairs to St. John's, we would still have our point guard. We are not going to have the money that other schools are going to have. It's going to be a while for Seton Hall to have the same level of funding. We don't have an alumnus who invented vitamin water or whatever the heck it is that the guy at St. John's did. We don't have Phil Knight at Oregon dousing them with money. And we're not the State University of New Jersey, right? That's Rutgers. They can afford to drop $45 million on a football program so they can go 7-5. My question is, what is the approach for a small revenue, for lack of a better way to put it, college trying to compete at the highest levels? Is there a Moneyball-like approach that would allow a team like Seton Hall to stay competitive without having to spend the $7 million a year that it's going to cost Alabama to be number one in the country? I'd like to hear both of your opinion.
Yeah, let me just touch on that real quick because I'm very passionate about that. And my friend Jeff from Point Pleasant has been talking about it for the past 3 years. Supposedly, Shaw told Jeff that to be competitive, you need $5 million. And we don't have, Mike Rimpoli, the vitamin water guy. And what was interesting is Frank Fraschilla said the MVP of St. John's is Mike Rimpoli, the vitamin water guy, for giving them that money. Not having that, because I know we do have a guy from CrowdStrike. Am I saying it right? Yeah, there's an alumnus, George Kurtz, I think that's his name. Nicole, our great producer, Nicole Gizzi, was telling me about it. He's a billionaire. I don't even know if the guy likes college basketball, but or if he's a fan of basketball in general. But without having that, I think the approach, and I spoke about this on Hall Line, and one of the callers sort of got on me on that. I think, and Villanova's doing this, Duke's doing this, and a lot of other schools, St. Bonaventure, you need a GM. You need, Shaw's a very good coach, but he's not Brian Cashman. So you need scouting, you need GM, you need to take that Moneyball approach, because look, the portal's going to be here before you know it, and all these players are going to be in it, and you have to make a quick evaluation and determination of who's undervalued, who you want, what their price is worth, how you're going to, and a coach with everything he's doing can't do that. So you need pretty much a department where they could, watch tape and make analysis. And I mean, I don't think we have any other choice, because it is now about, it's transactional. It's about acquiring talent. Before, we would be in on almost every great player. We were in on Kyle Anderson. We were in on Felipe. We were the bottom two. If we didn't get these kids, we got Isaiah Whitehead. It's all transactional now. And I don't blame the kid at all. I don't blame Kadari. Who wouldn't take the money? But, I think maybe the Moneyball approach, we really don't have a choice. What do you think, Chris?
Well, look, first and foremost, and look, this is not your solution, because you can't really force it. The truth is there's going to have to be a top-down change within the NCAA, because they went from not allowing players to get paid to allowing players to get paid. And when I first heard about NIL, I thought that was going to be instituted much more through sponsors than through the schools themselves and through boosters.
That was the original thought, right?
Which doesn't make any sense to me.
Right.
This is frustrating to me. It doesn't make any sense, and it is, I think, much less on the level than we expected it to be. And truth is, because of that, it's been a system that's complete. On top of that, it's been a system that's been completely unregulated, and that makes it harder for schools like Seton Hall that are mid to smaller size schools. And the truth is, it's going to be worse for the game because it's going to be just blue blood programs from here on out if this continues to go down this trend, and that's not what makes college basketball exciting. I all of the NBA, and so when you see, I'm not even going to say Seton Hall is a small school. Seton Hall is not, Levi upsetting Duke or Mercer or, Hugh Cookman or George Mason coming out and knocking somebody off. That should probably tell you something that as well, because Seton Hall is a school that has an NIT, has an old, like a traditional NIT national championship, like equivalent to an NCAA title. They have been to a national championship game and probably should have won. They have been a consistently producing program, and they're in a major conference, if not the best conference in the NCAA in the Big East. And if even they are struggling, and Rick Pitino is able to make these comments publicly without any, I'm not going to say without any punishment, but just without any pushback from the NCAA, then that should probably tell you that the system is rigged. The system is screwy for these programs like Seton Hall. Now, I will say, aside from so look, that's going to have to be changed at some point, and hopefully sooner than later. But aside from the actual NCAA part, I like Paul's approach talking about Moneyball. And look, I'm a huge fan of Moneyball. I wrote a paper on Moneyball in 8th grade, and while I got a poor grade on it, I understand the concept generally speaking. And look, it's a lot of that was when Jason Giambi was gone. Jason Giambi signed with the Yankees, left Oakland. No, we're not going to bring back Giambi, but we can recreate him. We're going to use these three guys to create the amount of OPS that Giambi had. And the truth is, Seton Hall basketball is a different sport. It's different competition. It's a different level. It is not even professional, technically. But it's going to be, can we get a group of guys that can amass this amount of points per game, this amount of rebounds per game, this amount of assists per game, blocks, steals, and lower the amount of turnovers. So that's one thing. It's going to have to be, recruiting tactics are going to have to change because so much money is going into the facilities, when the truth is players, especially in this day and age, are not going to care as much about the facilities as they will about the actual money that is going to be apparently owed to them.
Fair enough.
It's a complicated, yeah.
So I'd just like to jump in. I think that two things that I remember from Moneyball, and then Nick, you got to do your Stack Monster thing before we go off the air.
Yeah, I think we're going to go. I think it's 120. I think we're going to go 5 more minutes to 125. So yes, I will be Stack Monster in a few minutes.
Fair enough. So I'll give my two parting comments and then give Chris the microphone for the last one. The key to Moneyball to me, there were two pieces of it. The first was we're going to find players that nobody else knows about. And that leads to Nick's idea. We're gonna look in Division II programs. We're gonna look in junior colleges. We're not gonna be looking for the same 50 kids that everybody else is. And we're gonna find kids who can play that are overlooked because we've got better scouting. That's certainly an approach. And we'll find 5 unknown kids, and we'll be unranked at the beginning of the season, and we'll be 23-5 at the end of it. That's what we're hoping for. The other thing, though, is everybody wants a 6'11" senior, a 6'11" center who can shoot threes, right? Everybody wants a kid who can drive, who can shoot. There are certain things that everybody's going to want. The A's managed to figure out that people didn't care about walking and getting on base. They would pay a guy. They would find a guy who was hitting 250 with 75 walks, and realize he was as valuable as a guy hitting 280 with 30 walks and pay him as a 250 player. That leads me to style of play. Can Coach Holloway say, I'm going to play defense. I'm going to play, say, a full court press. And the kids I want have great endurance. They're quick. They're not necessarily great shooters or big, but we're going to just trap and drive guys crazy. On the other hand, I remember watching Northern Arizona, a bunch of they had 5'11" kids who could shoot from 45 feet
Shooters.
away. Yeah,
Shooters.
they beat
Yep.
St. John's, I think, that year. They were throwing up 45-foot. It was, you'd see him go to shoot, and you'd say, "I can't believe it," and then it would go in. So, is there a different style of play, a little bit different, that would allow us to get guys that everybody else doesn't want and win? Those are my two ideas on it.
Yeah, I think the thing is not to necessarily go for athletes. Like when you look at the team next year, I think the number one priority is, and I hate to say this word, re-signing Isaiah Coleman, and then maybe supplementing him with shooters. Because I've said that for years. The game has changed. And I mean, Patino started this years ago at Providence. You know, if we have a better percentage shooting threes than twos, a 3-point, shot counts more than a 2-point shot. And that's just simple math. So I think maybe just, getting the couple of players like Coleman or, top heavy with your money and then spreading it out with shooters. Chris, what do you think as I start walking around St. James Gate in Maplewood, New Jersey?
I would say the truth is the scouting and the recruiting is going to have to change because, the Pirates, even at the very early tenure for Holloway and for the very late tenure of Willard before the NIL really kicked in, were a very good transfer school and got a lot of guys through the transfer portal, and they were doing very well. It's the NIL that's really changed everything. So, look, I think on top of that, Holloway may want to change his scheme, his play calling, because play calling can either mask things, mask weaknesses, or it can play to the strengths of the players that you have. You said it, Paul. It's it's Moneyball. It's the island of misfit toys. How do you play to these guys' strengths?
Absolutely. Okay, Chris, thank you. Nick, we're giving you the microphone. Go to it, man.
Hey, guys, what's up? Chris? First of all, Chris, a pleasure. I love you, bro. Thank you so much. A pleasure doing this. I look forward to doing it with you again. I am at St. James Gate in Maplewood, New Jersey. Bartender, say, let's go Pirates! Let's go Pirates! Let's go Pirates! Woo! Woo! Let's go Pirates! I'm here with Seton Hall. Let's go Pirates! Let's go Pirates! Here we go. Let's go. This is Nick from Milburn, over and out from St. James Gate in beautiful downtown Maplewood Village in Maplewood, New Jersey. Paul, I love you. Chris Russo, I love you. Congrats to our producer extraordinaire, Nicole Gizzi, and the great one and only, often imitated, never duplicated, Bobby Blackjack Garrett. We're out, and let's go Pirates.
Thank you very much. Good night, guys. Enjoy the game.